Picture this. 250 miles above the Earth, a gleaming white structure the size of a football field is hurtling through the silent vacuum of space at over 17,500 miles per hour. This is the International Space Station, the most complex and expensive object ever built by humanity. A $100 billion testament to global cooperation and scientific ambition. But here's the reality most people never consider. This incredible outpost is surrounded by one of the most lethal environments imaginable. Outside its paper-thin walls, temperatures swing from a searing 250 degrees Fahrenheit in the sun to a bone-shattering minus 250 degrees in the shade. It's a place of deadly radiation and a complete unforgiving vacuum. It is, without a doubt, the most fragile city ever built. And inside this fragile city, a small crew of elite astronauts lives and works for 6 months at a time. 6 months without feeling the sun on their skin, without taking a real shower, or without feeling the simple comfort of gravity. So how do they do it? How do these modern-day pioneers manage to eat, sleep, and survive in a world where there is no up or down? How do they cope with the crushing isolation? And what incredible technologies and psychological tricks do they use to keep their bodies and minds from falling apart? The answers will give you a profound new respect for the heroes who call this place home. Today, we go inside the hidden world of the International Space Station. We'll uncover the engineering marvels that turn recycled sweat and urine into pure drinking water. We'll reveal why astronauts must exercise for 2 hours every single day just to survive, and we will explore the unwritten rules that keep this small band of explorers mentally strong, hundreds of miles away from everything they've ever known. If you're amazed by the courage and ingenuity of our astronauts, type amazing in the comments below. Now let's blast off and explore the brutal, mind-blowing truth of life in orbit. So what's the first brutal price of admission to this exclusive club 250 miles high? It isn't the G-forces of the launch or the fear of the endless vacuum outside. It's an immediate visceral shock to your own body. A biological civil war. It's a condition NASA calls Space Adaptation Sickness, or SAS. But that clinical name doesn't do justice to the violent confusion your body's thrown into. Imagine your brain is a high-performance computer and someone just unplugged every single sensor. The fluid in your inner ear, which tells you which way is down, is now useless. Your eyes see a world with no floor or ceiling. Your muscles and joints, which are used to fighting gravity, suddenly have nothing to push against. The result? A profound, dizzying disorientation. Many astronauts report feeling like they're constantly falling or tumbling head over heels even when perfectly still. This isn't just a minor inconvenience. For up to 80% of first-time flyers, this confusion triggers intense, debilitating nausea. These elite explorers are equipped with special sick bags for a reason, and they have to power through it because the mission clock has already started. But here's where it gets even stranger. While your brain is trying to figure out which way is up, your body is dealing with a second, bizarre transformation. On Earth, gravity pulls about 2 liters of fluid down into your legs. In space, that fluid immediately shifts upwards, migrating into your torso and head. This creates a phenomenon astronauts call puffy-faced chicken legs syndrome. Your face becomes swollen and round. You feel constantly congested, like you have the worst head cold of your life. And your legs, they shrink, becoming thin and weak-looking. Think about that. Within hours of arriving, these heroes are struggling with vertigo while looking in the mirror at a puffy, unrecognizable version of themselves. Yet, after a few days, something incredible happens. The human body, a masterpiece of engineering in its own right, adapts. The brain rewrites its own software, learning to rely on vision alone for orientation. The fluid levels stabilize. This isn't just getting over a sickness. It's the first fundamental test of an astronaut's career, and passing it is a testament to the mind-blowing resilience required to call space your home. So you've survived the biological chaos. Your brain has rewritten its own software to accept a world without gravity. But now comes a challenge that never, ever goes away. How do you go to sleep when there's no down to lie down on? Think about that for a moment. On Earth, sleep is an act of surrender to gravity. The feeling of a mattress supporting your weight, a pillow cradling your head. It's a fundamental comfort we all take for granted. In space, that comfort is gone. If you simply tried to fall asleep, you would drift aimlessly through the station, a human satellite bumping into sensitive computer panels or startling a fellow crew member in the dark. It's not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. The solution is found inside a space no bigger than a phone booth. These are the crew's private quarters, tiny closet-sized pods that serve as their only personal space for 6 straight months. And inside these pods, there's no bed. Instead, you'll find a simple sleeping bag. But this isn't the kind of sleeping bag you'd take camping. These are high-tech cocoons tethered directly to the wall of the cabin. Astronauts zip themselves in, ensuring they stay in one place for their entire 8-hour rest period. You don't lie down in them. You simply float inside in whatever orientation you choose. Some astronauts prefer to stand up to sleep, while others prefer to be horizontal. Without gravity, your body doesn't know the difference. But here's where it gets truly incredible. The sleeping bag does more than just keep them from floating away. The gentle pressure of the bag all around their body provides a crucial psychological comfort. It simulates the feeling of being held or lying under a blanket, tricking the brain into a state of security and rest. It is a psychological anchor in a world with no physical one. And the experience is mind-blowing. Astronauts report that once they adjust, it's some of the most restful sleep possible. There are no pressure points on your body. Your spine elongates. Your entire body is in a state of perfect relaxation. Imagine floating in a warm pool for 8 hours straight. That's what it's like. Many astronauts even have to strap their arms inside the bag, otherwise they tend to float up in front of their faces, a phenomenon that can be pretty startling if you wake up in the middle of the night. It's one more amazing example of how these heroes adapt, turning a completely alien environment into a place they can call home. So you're floating weightless in your high-tech cocoon, perfectly relaxed, your spine decompressing. It sounds like the most peaceful sleep imaginable. But there's a problem, a constant grinding opponent that never rests. You might imagine space is silent, complete, total silence. Wrong. The reality is, the International Space Station is loud, incredibly loud. It's a machine, a $100 billion life support system, and that machine is constantly working to keep you alive. Think about it. Dozens of fans are circulating the air, pumps are moving coolant and recycled water through miles of pipes. Filters are scrubbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It's a non-stop symphony of hums, whirs, clicks, and thumps. Astronauts have compared it to living inside a giant always-on computer, or trying to sleep with a vacuum cleaner running in the room next door for 6 months straight. So how do these heroes find a moment of peace? How do they create a sanctuary in the middle of a machine that never sleeps? The answer isn't some billion-dollar NASA technology. It's a collection of simple personal rituals that every astronaut swears by. The first line of defense is a good pair of earplugs or noise-cancelling headphones. It's their way of hitting the mute button on the entire station. But then there's another problem: the sun. The ISS orbits the Earth every 90 minutes, meaning astronauts experience 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every single day. The cabin is plunged into brilliant daylight and then back into darkness, over and over, completely destroying any normal sense of a day-night cycle. This is why the simple sleep mask becomes one of an astronaut's most prized possessions. But here's the truly incredible part. These aren't just tools for blocking out light and sound, they are psychological armor. By putting on an eye mask and earplugs, an astronaut creates a tiny, private universe in a place where true privacy doesn't exist. It's a signal to their own brain and to their crewmates that they have retreated into their own personal space. In an environment where you're never truly alone, these simple acts are how our pioneers build a fortress of solitude, allowing them to rest, recharge, and prepare for another day of working on the very edge of human existence. So you've found your fortress of solitude, blocking out the station's constant hum and the 16 daily sunrises. You've woken up in your floating cocoon. Now what? On Earth, the day starts with a simple, refreshing act: a hot shower, a cascade of water washing away the night. On the International Space Station, that simple act is a life-threatening hazard. Think about it. Water doesn't fall in zero gravity. It clings and floats. If you turned on a shower head, you wouldn't get a refreshing spray. You would create a massive, shimmering cloud of water droplets. a cloud that would drift through the station, ready to short-circuit a billion-dollar computer panel, or even worse, be inhaled by a crewmate. It's not an inconvenience, it's a potential catastrophe. So how do these heroes stay clean? The answer isn't a high-tech shower pod. It's a meticulously planned process that feels more like a science experiment than a morning routine. It all starts with a special water pouch, from which an astronaut carefully injects just enough water onto a washcloth to make it damp. Then comes the real magic: no-rinse body wash. This is a masterpiece of chemistry. A special soap designed to lather and clean the skin, then simply be toweled off. No rinsing required. The same goes for their hair. Astronauts use a no-rinse shampoo, working the foam into their scalp and watching their hair float up in wild directions before toweling it all dry. It is, in every sense of the word, a high-tech sponge bath. But here's where the precision becomes truly mind-blowing. What about brushing your teeth? You can't just spit into a sink. That foamy mix would become a cloud of floating debris. The solution is as strange as it is brilliant. Astronauts either swallow the specially formulated edible toothpaste, or they spit meticulously into a towel. And shaving. Imagine clouds of tiny sharp whiskers floating freely through the station, ready to be inhaled or to clog a critical air filter. It's a maintenance nightmare waiting to happen. That's why astronauts use a special shaving gel that's extra sticky, trapping the cut hair so the entire mess can be wiped away cleanly with a towel. Nothing escapes. This isn't just about hygiene, it's a daily high-stakes ballet of containment. Every drop of water, every fleck of toothpaste, every stray hair is a potential hazard that must be controlled. For these elite explorers, locked away from the feeling of rain or a real shower for 6 months, this ritual is a vital piece of psychological armor, a small, essential moment of normalcy that helps them feel human, 250 miles above the Earth. So, you've mastered the art of the high-tech sponge bath. You've brushed your teeth without spitting and shaved without making a mess. But now, we arrive at the one question everybody asks, and the one piece of equipment that every single astronaut approaches with a deep sense of respect and a little bit of fear. The space toilet. Let's be clear about something, this isn't just a toilet. On Earth, gravity does 99% of the work for you. But in space, there is no down. Anything that leaves your body becomes a free-floating biohazard, a potential disaster for sensitive electronics and the health of the crew. The solution is not a simple flush. It's a $23 million marvel of engineering called the Universal Waste Management System. And how does this multi-million-dollar machine work? Forget water. The space toilet works with air. It is, quite literally, a vacuum cleaner for human waste. There are two separate parts, because in the world of zero-gravity plumbing, liquids and solids must never mix. For liquid waste, or number one, there's a specialized funnel on a long hose. Astronauts use their own personal funnel adapter, turn on a fan to create suction, and aim with a level of precision that would impress a sniper. Miss, and you'll be spending the next 20 minutes chasing down floating droplets with a disinfectant wipe. But it's the procedure for solid waste, for number two, that demands true mastery. The target is an opening just a few inches across, far smaller than a standard toilet bowl on Earth. Think about that. The astronauts must perfectly align their bodies over this tiny opening while floating. The challenge is so great that there's actually a built-in toilet training camera, so that back on Earth, astronauts can practice their aim and ensure they are positioned with absolute perfection. But here's where the real stress begins. What happens when this $23 million space vacuum breaks down? On Earth, you call a plumber. 250 miles above the Earth, you are the plumber. Imagine this. You're floating inside a cramped compartment, wearing rubber gloves and a face mask, about to perform surgery on the most complex toilet ever built. A single loose screw or a dropped tool doesn't just fall to the floor, it floats away, threatening to clog a fan or short out a circuit. This isn't just a dirty job, it's a high-stakes, high-pressure repair that can determine the comfort and sanitation of the entire crew for weeks. It is, without a doubt, the single most dreaded maintenance task on the entire station. And what happens to all the waste it collects? This is the truly mind-blowing part. The solid waste is sealed in bags, compacted, and eventually loaded onto a cargo ship that detaches from the station and burns up harmlessly in the Earth's atmosphere. But the liquid waste? It goes on an incredible journey through the station's water processor assembly, a miracle of recycling that purifies urine and sweat into water that is cleaner than most of the water you drink on Earth. That's right. The water for today's coffee is, quite literally, made from yesterday's coffee. It's one more staggering example of the ingenuity and sheer grit required to survive and thrive on the very edge of human existence. So you've wrestled your body into submission, mastered the art of zero-gravity hygiene, and even learned to operate a $23 million space toilet. You've conquered the brutal challenges inside the station. But none of that compares to the threat that is constantly, silently trying to get in. It's a threat you can't see, hear, or predict. A relentless, invisible hailstorm of death. In the world of spaceflight, they call it MMOD, micrometeoroids and orbital debris. Think of it as cosmic shrapnel, millions of tiny natural space rocks and pieces of man-made junk from lost astronaut tools to flecks of paint from old satellites. And every single piece is a bullet. How fast? Up to 10 times the speed of a rifle bullet. At over 7,500 miles per hour, even an object smaller than a grain of sand carries devastating energy. A 1 centimeter particle, the size of a pea, has the explosive force of a hand grenade. Anything larger is simply catastrophic. The US Space Surveillance Network tracks tens of thousands of these objects, but there are hundreds of thousands more that are too small to see, yet still large enough to kill. So what happens if one of these tiny bullets hits the station in the wrong place? It's not a simple leak you can patch up. An impact could rip a hole in the station's skin, causing explosive decompression. In an instant, the air from their module would be violently sucked into the vacuum. There would be no time to react, no time to even understand what happened. So how do these heroes sleep at night, knowing this invisible swarm is all around them? The answer is an ingenious suit of armor. The only thing standing between the crew and instant catastrophe, the station's multi-layered shielding. But here's the truly incredible part. This armor isn't a single thick slab of metal. That would be too heavy to launch and, believe it or not, less effective. Instead, it's a masterpiece of physics called a Whipple shield. It's a multi-layered defense. The first outer layer is a thin aluminum sheet. Its only job is to be sacrificed. When a tiny projectile hits this sheet at immense speed, the impact is so violent it vaporizes the object, shattering it into a cloud of smaller, slower particles. And then, several inches behind it sits the second, much thicker wall. This is the catch plate. It's strong enough to absorb the shotgun-like blast of vapor and fragments from that first impact, completely protecting the station's main pressure hull. Think about that. This isn't about brute force. It's about outsmarting a bullet. It is a silent, unsung guardian, a testament to the staggering ingenuity that keeps our heroes safe as they live and work on the very edge of forever. So the station is a fortress, a self-sustaining habitat with its own armor, its own atmosphere, and its own water supply. It is a masterpiece of recycling that can support human life in a complete vacuum. But there's one thing this $100 billion outpost cannot do. It can't make food, or spare parts, or new science experiments. The crew is living on the most remote island in human history, and when they run out of something, they can't just run to the store. So how do you keep this city in the sky stocked and supplied? How do you run the most complex and dangerous delivery route ever conceived? The answer comes in the form of a fleet of incredible uncrewed cargo ships, robotic workhorses like SpaceX's Dragon and Northrop Grumman's Cygnus. These are the unsung heroes of the space program. Think about that for a moment. This is a 250-mile-long supply line stretching straight up into the heavens. Every few months, one of these incredible spacecraft launches from Earth, packed with thousands of pounds of critical supplies. We're talking about everything from delicate scientific equipment and computer hardware to clean clothes, tools, and of course, food. It is, without a doubt, the longest and most expensive grocery run in history. But here's where the logistics become truly mind-blowing. The arrival of a cargo ship is one of the biggest events of any mission. It's a lifeline. For the crew, it's not just about restocking provisions. It's a direct physical link to planet Earth. Inside that cargo hold, nestled amongst the hardware, are care packages from family and, most precious of all, a small stash of fresh food. Items like apples, oranges, or other fresh produce that are impossible to keep for long on the station. For astronauts who have been living on specially packaged space food for months, biting into a fresh, crisp apple is a sensory explosion, a powerful psychological reminder of home. The arrival of these robotic freighters isn't just a resupply mission, it's a delivery of morale, a fresh taste of home, and the vital link that makes long-duration survival on the final frontier possible. So for a few incredible days after a cargo ship arrives, the astronauts enjoy a taste of paradise, a fresh orange, a crisp apple, a direct sensory link to planet Earth. But what happens when that precious cargo is gone? What fuels these heroes for the other 6 months of their mission? You might be picturing tubes of grey paste like something out of a 1960s science fiction movie. Wrong. The truth is, the space station pantry is a marvel of culinary science, offering a rotating menu of over 200 different food and drink items. Forget bread, though. That's a catastrophe waiting to happen. A single crumb could float into a sensitive piece of electronics or be inhaled by a crew member. That's why you'll find tortillas on every mission. They don't create crumbs. Look closer and you'll find everything from macaroni and cheese to M&Ms. This isn't just a menu, it's a psychological toolkit, with each astronaut personally selecting their meals months before they even leave Earth to ensure they have their favourite comfort foods to boost morale. But how do you make food last for years in space without refrigeration? The answer lies in 3 incredible pieces of technology. First, you have thermostabilized foods. Think of these as high-tech military rations. Food is sealed in a pouch and heated to high temperatures to kill any bacteria, making it safe to eat for years. This is how they have things like beefsteak or pasta dishes. Then there's rehydratable food. For these items, all the water has been completely removed. When it's time to eat, astronauts simply inject water directly into the pouch with a special needle. This is how they make everything from scrambled eggs to soups. And finally, there are the irradiated meats. Using a process similar to medical sterilization, these foods are exposed to ionizing radiation, completely destroying any microbes and making them shelf-stable for years. It's cutting-edge science that ensures our heroes get the protein they need. But here's the truly mind-blowing part, where the reality of space completely changes the human experience. What is one of the most popular food items on the station? Shrimp cocktail. Why? Because of that puffy-faced chicken legs syndrome. The fluid shift in their bodies leaves them feeling constantly congested, which dulls their sense of taste and smell. The sharp, spicy horseradish in the shrimp cocktail is one of the few things that can cut through that congestion, providing a powerful burst of flavour. It's a sensory oasis. And what about something as simple as salt and pepper? You can't just shake it. The floating grains would create a hazard. The solution? Salt is dissolved in water and pepper is suspended in oil. They're served in bottles so astronauts can squeeze a liquid dash of flavour onto their food. Think about that for a moment. To survive in space, you have to reinvent everything, right down to the salt shaker. It's one more staggering example of the ingenuity required to turn a sterile laboratory into a home 250 miles above the Earth. So you've mastered the art of liquid salt and pepper, and you understand why shrimp cocktail is a gourmet pleasure 250 miles high. The culinary science that goes into feeding these heroes is incredible. But with every meal comes a hidden danger, a constant battle against an enemy so small it's almost invisible, yet so powerful it could cripple the entire $100 billion station. The deadly crumb. Think about that for a moment. On Earth, if a crumb falls from your toast, it lands on the floor. You might step on it. That's it. In space, that same crumb becomes a rogue satellite, a tiny free-floating hazard travelling at the same speed as the station, waiting to cause chaos. Imagine that crumb floating into an astronaut's eye. There's no easy way to wash it out. Or worse, what if it's inhaled? The Heimlich manoeuvre is incredibly difficult to perform in zero gravity. A simple crumb could become a lethal choking hazard. And the biggest danger of all, the station's electronics. Thousands of ultra-sensitive computer panels and control boards are exposed to the cabin air. A single stray crumb, carrying a tiny static charge, could drift into a ventilation fan, get lodged in a circuit board, and cause a multi-million-dollar short circuit. It's a maintenance nightmare that could threaten the lives of the entire crew. This is why every single aspect of space food is designed around containment. It's why you'll never find a loaf of bread or a crunchy cracker on the station. It's why tortillas are the bread of choice. They don't crumble. It's why so many foods are served in pouches, with a texture that makes them stick to a fork or to each other. Nothing is left to chance. But here's the truly brilliant part. NASA's engineers knew that even with perfect packaging and meticulous astronauts, some particles would inevitably escape. A fleck of dry skin, a stray hair, a tiny speck of food. So they turned the entire space station into a self-cleaning machine. How? The very air they breathe. You might think the constant hum of the ventilation fans is just for circulating oxygen. Wrong. That constant airflow is a weapon. It's a precisely engineered current that creates a gentle, continuous draft, guiding any and all floating particles towards vents located all over the station. These are not just any vents. Behind them are incredibly fine filters, the station's last line of defense. Every single speck of dust, every crumb, every stray particle is pulled out of the air and trapped. This isn't just an air filter. It's the station's immune system constantly scrubbing the environment clean of microscopic threats. Think about that. These heroes are living inside a machine that is actively hunting down and capturing the crumbs from their lunch. It is one more staggering, almost invisible layer of ingenuity that makes living on the final frontier possible. So you've hunted the deadly crumb. You've mastered the science of rehydratable shrimp cocktail and liquid salt. You understand the staggering logistics of feeding heroes on the final frontier. But there's one aspect of mealtime on the International Space Station that is more important than all the technology, all the logistics, and all the culinary science combined. The table. Now let's talk about the galley. Forget a spacious dining room. The station's kitchen table is a simple surface inside the Zvezda service module with just enough room for the crew to gather. It's the unofficial town square of this $100 billion city in the sky. Picture this. After a grueling 12-hour day of spacewalks, science experiments, and high-stakes maintenance, astronauts from the United States, Russia, Japan, and Europe float into the module. They grab their food pouches, inject them with hot water, and tether themselves to the floor or the walls around the table. This isn't just about refueling their bodies, it's about refueling their souls. This is the one time of day they are not colleagues but a family. In this moment they share stories from home, they tell jokes only they would find funny, and they look out the nearby window at their home planet, a shimmering blue marble together. It is the single most important team-building exercise on the mission. But here's the truly profound part. This daily ritual isn't a happy accident. It is a mission-critical tool for psychological survival. NASA and its international partners know that for this small band of explorers, locked away from every human they love for half a year, this communal meal is the most effective medicine against the crushing stress and isolation of space. It's where tensions are eased, national barriers dissolve, and the crew is reforged every single night into a single, unified team. Think about that. On Earth, their home countries might be political rivals, but 250 miles up, a Russian cosmonaut might be sharing a pouch of freeze-dried borscht, while a Japanese astronaut offers up some of their specially packaged curry. In the silent, unforgiving vacuum of space, this simple act of sharing a meal becomes the ultimate expression of our shared humanity. It's more than just the social heart of the station, it's a daily, powerful reminder of what they're all fighting for. So, you know that on the International Space Station, yesterday's coffee literally becomes today's coffee, a mind-blowing feat of recycling. But what if I told you the miracle goes even deeper? That the same recycled water also becomes the very air they breathe. Think about the most basic unconscious act of your life. Taking a breath. On Earth, it's free and endless. But 250 miles up, it's the single most precious and manufactured commodity in the universe. Without a constant supply of fresh air, the crew would suffocate in hours. So how do you keep these heroes breathing? You might imagine they just launch massive high-pressure tanks of oxygen from Earth, like giant scuba tanks. Wrong. The weight and cost would be astronomical. A crew of 6 astronauts needs over a ton of oxygen just to survive for 1 year. Launching that much weight that often isn't just impractical, it's a logistical impossibility. The real solution is far more brilliant. It's a piece of hardware that represents one of the station's greatest technological triumphs, the Oxygen Generation System, or OGS. This machine is a masterpiece of applied chemistry. It takes that same recycled water, the water reclaimed from the crew's breath, their sweat, even their urine, and performs a kind of modern-day alchemy. It runs a powerful electrical current through the water, a process called electrolysis. And here's where the magic happens. That electricity literally rips the water molecules apart, splitting them back into their two basic components: pure, breathable oxygen and hydrogen. The oxygen is piped directly into the station's atmosphere, replenishing the air the astronauts have just consumed. But here's the truly incredible part. The hydrogen byproduct isn't just wasted, it's simply vented out into the vacuum of space, a whisper of exhaust from a machine that makes human life possible. Think about that for a moment. The station is literally breathing, using the crew's own wastewater to create a fresh atmosphere from one moment to the next. This isn't just a recycling system, it is the beating mechanical heart of the International Space Station, another staggering piece of ingenuity that allows our heroes to survive on the very edge of everything. So the station breathes, using recycled water to perform an act of modern alchemy, turning it into pure oxygen. But that begs the ultimate question: where does all this miracle water come from in the first place? The answer is both slightly awkward and truly groundbreaking. Think about what it costs to launch a single bottle of water to the International Space Station. We're talking about thousands of dollars per pound. To keep a crew of 6 hydrated for a year would require launching almost 9,000 pounds of water. The cost would be astronomical, the logistics impossible. So NASA's engineers built something that sounds like science fiction, a closed-loop masterpiece. It's called the Water Recovery System, and it is designed to reclaim every last possible drop of water on board. And when we say every drop, we mean it. The system gathers moisture from every conceivable source. It collects condensation from the crew's sweat as they work out. It literally pulls humidity out of the air from their breath. But here's the most mind-blowing and talked about part of the system. It collects the crew's urine. The system's urine processor assembly uses a complex distillation process, essentially boiling the urine in a vacuum to separate the pure water vapor, leaving all the contaminants behind. All of this collected water, from breath, from sweat, from urine, is then fed into the water processor assembly. This is the final stage of purification. The water passes through a series of incredibly advanced filters and catalytic reactors that remove any remaining impurities right down to the microscopic level. And the result? The water that comes out of this system is often purer than the tap water most of us drink back on Earth. So pure, in fact, that minerals have to be added back in just to make it taste right. This incredible system recycles an astonishing 98% of all water brought to the station. Think about that. It's what leads to the most famous joke among astronauts. Today's coffee is tomorrow's coffee. It's not just a clever line, it's a testament to the absolute marvel of closed-loop engineering that's not only essential for the station's survival, but is the critical technology that will one day allow humanity to travel to Mars and beyond. So the station has its own oxygen factory, a machine that performs modern-day alchemy to create the air they breathe. It is a masterpiece of life support. But here's the deadly paradox of life inside a sealed can. Every single breath these heroes take turns precious, life-giving oxygen into a silent, invisible poison. Carbon dioxide, CO2. Think about that for a moment. On Earth, the vast systems of our planet, the oceans and forests, handle this for us for free. But in the sterile, closed loop of the space station, that CO2 has nowhere to go. It just builds up. Slowly, relentlessly, it would turn the very air they breathe into a toxic, suffocating blanket. Without a solution, the crew would become dizzy, then incapacitated, and then worse. So how do you fight a poison that you create just by being alive? The answer is another masterpiece of engineering, a machine that works tirelessly in the background, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's called the Carbon Dioxide Removal Assembly, or CDRE. And this machine is, quite literally, the station's other lung. It doesn't just filter the air, it actively scrubs it clean using a brilliant process. The CDRE uses 2 chambers, or beds, filled with a porous, clay-like material called zeolite. For half an hour, one bed inhales cabin air, and this high-tech sponge snatches the CO2 molecules right out of the atmosphere while letting the oxygen pass through untouched. But here's where the truly mind-blowing part of the cycle happens. While one bed is inhaling the station's air, the other bed is doing the exact opposite. It exhales. The the system heats the second bed and exposes it to the hard vacuum of space, which violently rips the captured carbon dioxide out of the material. This poison is then vented harmlessly overboard. Then they swap roles. One breathes in, one breathes out. A constant life-sustaining rhythm that never ever stops. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more brilliant, it does. In recent years, engineers have added another layer of genius. Instead of just dumping all that carbon overboard, some of it is now sent to another system, which combines it with waste hydrogen from the oxygen generator. The result? It creates more water. That's right. The toxic gas they exhale is now being used to create the very water that gets turned back into fresh oxygen. It is the ultimate closed loop, a perfect life-sustaining circle of ingenuity, and the final piece of the puzzle that lets our heroes breathe easy on the most dangerous frontier imaginable. Now let's talk about a part of life in space that is anything but glamorous, but is absolutely critical to survival. A challenge that never, ever stops. Trash day. On Earth, you put your garbage on the curb and a truck hauls it away. It's an afterthought. But on the International Space Station, a sealed-up $100 billion laboratory, there is no away. Every single piece of trash, every food wrapper, every used wet wipe, every broken piece of equipment is a potential hazard. It's a constant accumulating threat to the crew's health and the station's safety. Let's start with the most personal waste. We already know the space toilet uses a vacuum for solids, but that waste doesn't just disappear. It's meticulously collected inside a sealed canister. Imagine this. For months, the astronauts have to live alongside every single thing the crew has collectively discarded. It's a stark daily reminder of the unforgiving realities of living in a completely closed system. But human waste is just a tiny fraction of the problem. Think about it. Over a single 6-month mission, a crew can generate over 3,000 pounds of garbage. To put that in perspective, that's like storing the entire contents of a pickup truck bed full of trash inside your house, with no way to take it out. Every single item must be accounted for, managed, and stored. So how do these heroes stop from being buried alive in their own garbage? The answer is with brutal discipline and a custom-built high-tech trash compactor. Every day, astronauts painstakingly gather all the dry waste, place it into special bags, and then use a powerful press to crush it down into dense, storable discs. This isn't just a simple chore. It is a high-stakes game of Tetris, where every square inch of storage space is more precious than gold. But here's the truly brilliant and fiery finale to this entire process. Remember those robotic cargo ships that bring up fresh supplies? They don't return to Earth empty. They become the most advanced garbage trucks in human history. The crew spends days painstakingly loading these thousands of pounds of compacted, catalogued trash into the empty vessel. Once it's packed to the brim, the cargo ship undocks. But it isn't set on a course for home. It's on a one-way mission. It deliberately fires its thrusters to push itself back into Earth's atmosphere, becoming a funeral pyre for 6 months of orbital living. Think about that. The final solution to the station's garbage problem is a multi-million-dollar kamikaze mission. Streaking across the sky at thousands of miles per hour, the ship and its entire cargo are incinerated, vaporized into a harmless man-made meteor. A brief, brilliant flash of light that represents another staggering feat of ingenuity required to live on the final frontier. So the station's magnificent machinery provides the air, the water, and scrubs the toxins from the atmosphere. It's a fortress of life, a perfect bubble of survival in the empty vacuum. But what if the most dangerous enemy isn't the vacuum outside? What if it's not a tiny micrometeoroid or a system failure? What if the war is being waged inside you? This is the brutal, hidden truth of long-duration spaceflight. Once freed from the constant pull of Earth, the human body begins a quiet, relentless process of self-destruction. An invisible decay that no machine can stop. It's a war against your own biology. Let's start with your muscles. On Earth, every single movement you make, standing up, walking to the kitchen, lifting your arm, is a battle against gravity. Your muscles are constantly engaged, constantly working. In space, that battle is over. There is no resistance. And the human body is brutally efficient. It sees those large, powerful leg and back muscles as a pointless waste of energy, and so it begins to dismantle them. Astronauts can lose up to 20% of their muscle mass on a 6-month mission. Think about that for a moment. It's the equivalent of being bedridden for months on end, your body literally consuming itself from the inside out. But as frightening as that is, the attack on your bones is even more sinister. On Earth, the simple impact of walking and running sends signals through your skeleton, telling your body to keep your bones strong and dense. In zero gravity, those signals stop. Complete radio silence. The cells that build bone mass slow down, but the cells that break down bone keep working at their normal pace. The result is staggering. An astronaut can lose critical bone density at a rate of 1 to 2% per month. To put that into perspective, an elderly person with severe osteoporosis loses about that much in an entire year. These elite explorers are experiencing advanced aging at 12 times the normal rate. Their skeletons are becoming as fragile as a 90-year-old's. But here's the truly insidious part. All that calcium being leached from their bones has to go somewhere. It floods their bloodstream, and the kidneys have to work overtime to filter it out. This dramatically increases the risk of forming kidney stones. A kidney stone on Earth is agony. A kidney stone in zero gravity 250 miles from the nearest hospital is a mission-ending, potentially life-threatening catastrophe. So how do these heroes fight back? How do you prevent your own body from tearing itself apart piece by piece? The answer is not a pill or a miracle drug. It is a brutal, 2-hour-long battle that every single astronaut must fight, every single day, without fail. So how do you win a war against your own body? A war where your muscles are evaporating and your bones are turning to chalk, molecule by molecule? You don't fight it with a pill, you fight it with brute force. And the armory for this daily battle is the most important room on the entire International Space Station. It's not a lab or a command module, it's the gym. But how do you lift weights when weights are weightless? A 300-pound barbell would just float away if you nudged it. The solution is a masterpiece of engineering called the URAD, the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device. This isn't your local gym's weight rack. Instead of heavy iron plates, it uses 2 powerful vacuum cylinders to create resistance. The numbers are staggering. Astronauts can perform squats, deadlifts, and bench presses, simulating forces of over 600 pounds. Think about that for a moment. These heroes are literally pulling against the vacuum of space itself to trick their muscles into not disappearing. But fighting muscle loss is only half the battle. What about their bones, which are dissolving at a terrifying rate? To save them, you need impact. The kind you get from running, so they turn to the T2 treadmill. But here's the truly incredible part. To run when you have no weight, you have to be physically forced down. Astronauts strap themselves into a complex harness of bungees and straps that yanks them onto the treadmill with hundreds of pounds of force, simulating their body weight. Imagine trying to run a 10-minute mile while a harness is constantly trying to pull you into the ceiling. It's not a workout, it's a wrestling match against zero gravity. And alongside this, they use the Cevis, a specialized stationary bike, meticulously engineered to isolate vibrations so their intense pedaling doesn't shake the $100 billion station apart. Let's be clear about something. This isn't a choice. It isn't about fitness goals. This mandatory 2.5-hour daily workout is the most critical prescription of their entire mission. It is the price they pay to live on the final frontier and still be able to come home. Without this relentless daily war against their own biology, these heroes would return to Earth as fragile shadows of themselves, their skeletons too brittle to even stand under the familiar pull of gravity. It is the ultimate testament to their iron will, and one more staggering piece of ingenuity that allows humanity to not just visit space, but to live there. So, these heroes wage a brutal 2-hour war every single day, pulling against the vacuum of space just to keep their own bodies from falling apart. But here's what most people never realize. Winning that daily battle isn't enough. They haven't just been sent 250 miles up to live and work, they've been sent up there to be studied. Let's be clear about something. Every single astronaut on the International Space Station is a living, breathing subject in the most ambitious and expensive medical experiment in human history. Their bodies are the laboratory, and the data they collect is more valuable than any piece of hardware on board. So what does this routine look like? It's a relentless schedule of self-examination, guided by an army of scientists on Earth. They meticulously draw their own blood, a high-stakes procedure where a single floating droplet could become a biohazard. They spin those samples in a custom zero-gravity centrifuge and store them in ultra-cold science freezers for the long trip home. They collect their own saliva. They even collect their own urine for analysis. But here's where it becomes truly mind-blowing. They perform their own medical procedures. Imagine this. Guided by a doctor on a video screen 250 miles below, an astronaut will press an ultrasound probe against their own heart, their own liver, or even their own eyeball, mapping the bizarre and often dangerous ways the human body adapts to a world without gravity. And it's not just their bodies, it's their minds. They regularly take complex cognitive tests on laptops, allowing scientists to track every subtle change in their memory, their spatial awareness, and their reaction time. Why go through all this? Why turn these elite explorers into their own test subjects? Because every single data point, every blood sample, every ultrasound image, every test score is a priceless piece of a much larger puzzle. It is the key to solving the single biggest question in space exploration. How do we keep human beings alive and well on the years-long journey to Mars and beyond? These heroes aren't just living on the frontier, they are mapping it. With their own blood, their own bones, and their own minds. It is the ultimate act of scientific pioneering. So you've mapped their bodies, you've drawn their blood and charted the slow decay of their bones. You understand the brutal physical price of living on the final frontier. But all of that pales in comparison to the war you can't see. The battle waged not against muscle loss or calcium deficiency, but against the silent, crushing emptiness of space itself. Let's be clear about something. The most dangerous environment on the International Space Station isn't the vacuum outside the walls. It's the space between an astronaut's ears. For 6 straight months, these heroes are confined to a series of metal tubes, locked away from every human being they have ever known, with only a small handful of crewmates for company. Think about that. You can't go for a walk. You can't feel a breeze. You can't step outside. You are trapped. But worse than trapped, you're isolated on a scale that is almost impossible for us on Earth to comprehend. Psychologists have a name for the terrifying mental slide that can result from this. They call it the break-off phenomenon. This isn't just feeling homesick. It's a profound, dangerous detachment where Earth itself begins to feel unreal. A distant blue marble on a screen. The lives of the 8 billion people down below start to feel like a television show you're no longer a part of. This can lead to a state of apathy, or even hostility toward mission control. An astronaut who has broken off is a mission-critical danger. So how do these elite explorers fight a war against their own minds? How do they keep themselves psychologically tethered to a planet 250 miles away? The answer isn't a pill. It's a multi-layered defense system for the soul. It starts with a rigidly structured schedule, where every single minute of their day is planned. This isn't about efficiency. It's about denying the crushing loneliness a moment to take root. But here's the truly incredible part. NASA's most powerful tools against the break-off phenomenon are profoundly human. Every week, astronauts have a private video conference with their families. This isn't a perk. It's a vital psychological lifeline, a moment to reconnect not just as an astronaut but as a parent, a spouse, a son, or a daughter. And then there is the station's most magnificent therapeutic tool, that famous 7-window dome, the cupola. You might think it's just a viewing gallery for taking breathtaking photos. Wrong. That dome is a weapon against isolation. It's where astronauts go to find their hometowns streaking by below. It's where they watch lightning storms bloom silently over continents. It is a place to reconnect, to see Earth not as a distant concept, but as their home. It is a constant, powerful visual reminder of what they are working for, and what they will one day return to. It's one more staggering, brilliant piece of the puzzle that proves the strongest, most important system on the entire space station is the unbeatable resilience of the human mind. So what does this rigid defense against mental chaos actually look like? On Earth, our lives are governed by a rhythm we take for granted. The sun rises, we work. The sun sets, we rest. It's a simple, biological clock. But what happens when you experience 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every single day? How do you create order when the universe around you is offering nothing but chronological anarchy? The answer is one of the most powerful yet invisible pieces of technology on the entire station. It isn't a machine, it's the schedule itself. A masterpiece of psychological engineering that governs every single moment of an astronaut's life. First, forget about your home time zone. On the International Space Station, you don't live on Houston time or Moscow time or Tokyo time. You live on an entirely different clock. It's called Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC. This isn't an arbitrary choice. It is the single official time of the mission, a neutral clock that allows mission control centers all around the world, from Texas to Russia to Germany, to operate in perfect, flawless synchronization. And when we say the day is scheduled, we mean every single minute is accounted for. The day often begins not with a personal alarm clock, but with a wake-up tone sent from mission control. Shortly after, the entire crew joins a daily planning conference, syncing up with the army of scientists and engineers on the ground. From that moment on, their day unfolds in a series of meticulously planned 5-minute increments displayed on their laptops. A block of time for a complex physics experiment, a block for station maintenance, a block for that brutal, non-negotiable 2.5-hour workout, a block for lunch, a block for cleaning air filters. Nothing is left to chance. But here's the truly incredible part. This isn't about micromanagement, it's a lifeline. With no natural day or night, this artificial structure provides an essential sense of progress. A beginning, a middle, and an end to each day. It provides purpose. It is the single most effective weapon against the aimless drift that can lead to the dangerous break-off phenomenon. Think about that for a moment. This schedule isn't there to control the astronauts. It's there to protect them. It's the rhythm that keeps their minds anchored to reality. The drumbeat of purpose that drives them forward, one 5-minute block at a time, on the most isolated frontier in human history. So you're living on a clock created by mission control. Every 5-minute block of your existence is governed by a schedule, a necessary and relentless rhythm designed to keep your mind anchored in a place that has no natural up, down, day, or night. It's a fortress of purpose built to protect you from the crushing void. But where do you go when you need to escape the fortress? Where do you find a moment of true, unscheduled freedom when you are locked inside a can 250 miles above the Earth? There's only one place. A small, 7-sided bay window bolted to the side of the station. The cupola. You might think it's just an observation deck, a luxury for taking stunning pictures of Earth to post on social media. Wrong. This isn't just a window, it's the station's psychological release valve. It is, without a doubt, the most important room on the entire $100 billion outpost, because it's the one place that isn't about survival. It's about perspective. Imagine floating weightless into this dome of glass. The constant hum of the station's machinery fades away. Below you, the entire planet scrolls by in silent, overwhelming majesty. You watch continents drift past in minutes. You see hurricanes churning over the ocean, massive silent engines of weather. At night you see thunderstorms bloom like silent fireworks, and entire cities light up like golden spiderwebs on the dark velvet of the Earth. There's a name for the profound, cognitive shift experienced by almost every human who has seen this. It's called the overview effect. It's a sudden, gut-punch realization that the planet isn't a collection of countries on a map. It's a single, unified, living system. Think about that for a moment. From this vantage point, the imaginary lines of borders simply vanish. The conflicts that preoccupy nations, the political squabbles, the divisions that seem so important on the ground, they all dissolve into an overwhelming sense of unity. You don't feel detached from humanity. You feel an incredible, profound connection to all of it. This is why the cupola is the station's soul. It's where these heroes go to remember what they're fighting for. It's a powerful daily dose of perspective that combats the intense isolation by reminding them not of what they've left behind, but of the beautiful, fragile home we all share. It's the ultimate therapy and one more staggering piece of ingenuity designed to keep the human mind whole on the final frontier. So these heroes have the cupola, a 7-windowed dome that provides a godlike connection to the entire planet, a profound, soul-altering perspective. But here's the quiet human truth of living for 6 months on the final frontier. Sometimes you don't need to see a continent drift by. You just need to see your daughter's smile. You don't need to witness a sunrise over an entire ocean. You just need to hear your husband's voice. This is the other half of the psychological war, keeping these pioneers tethered not just to the planet, but to their lives, their families, their homes. So how do you build a bridge for the heart across 250 miles of empty space? The answer is a technological lifeline, a communication system as critical as a knee life support machine. Let's talk about the weekly private video conference. This isn't a perk. It is a psychological prescription, a scheduled, protected moment that is one of the most sacred on the entire mission. For 1 hour, in a private corner of the station, they connect to Earth. But here's the truly incredible part. For that hour, they stop being astronauts. They're just a parent, helping with homework from orbit. A spouse, sharing a laugh about something funny that happened back home. A child, checking in on their own aging parents. It is a powerful, emotional anchor, a moment to refuel their soul and remind them of who they are when they're not wearing a flight suit. And then there's the phone. A simple IP phone that allows them to call home almost any time they want, routed through a complex network of communication satellites. Think about that for a moment. An astronaut can finish a complex experiment, float over to a handset and literally dial their home number a planet away. This connection isn't just communication, it's a weapon, a direct counterattack against the crushing break-off phenomenon. It's the sound of a loved one's voice, cutting through the isolation, reminding them that Earth isn't just a blue marble on a screen. It's real, and it's waiting for them. It is one more staggering piece of ingenuity that proves that even in the most hostile environment imaginable, the most powerful force is still a simple human connection. So you have your digital bridge to Earth, a vital connection to the family you left behind on that shimmering blue marble. A voice, a smile that keeps your soul anchored. But here's the brutal paradox of life on the final frontier. While your heart is with your family 250 miles below, your life is in the hands of the 5 strangers floating right beside you. Think about that for a moment. On the ground, the countries these heroes come from might be locked in complex political rivalries. But on the International Space Station, that is all just noise. The astronaut from Russia isn't your competitor. The astronaut from Japan isn't a foreigner. They are the only people in the universe who can save your life if something goes wrong. This isn't an exaggeration. It is the fundamental law of survival in orbit. The crew is a mix of people from NASA, from Russia's Roscosmos, from Europe's ESA, and from Japan's JAXA. They speak different languages, grew up in completely different cultures, and may have completely different ways of looking at the world. And yet, for 6 straight months, they must operate as a single, flawless entity. Because in a place where a loose screw can become a deadly projectile and a single miscalculation can decompress a module, there is no room for misunderstanding. There is no space for ego. You can't just walk away from a disagreement to cool off. So how do they forge a single, unified team out of this international melting pot? The answer isn't a rule book. It's an unwritten, unspoken code, a shared culture born from the shared experience of extreme danger. It's called being an expeditionary crew. And at its heart is one unbreakable principle: absolute unconditional trust. You have to trust that the person floating next to you has performed every procedure with the same superhuman focus as you have. You have to trust that they have studied, trained, and prepared for every possible failure just as relentlessly as you. But here's the truly incredible part. This trust isn't just about professional competence, it's about personal connection. This is why you'll see an American astronaut learning Russian phrases for a casual chat, or a Russian cosmonaut sharing a pouch of their favourite food from home. They celebrate each other's holidays, Christmas, then Orthodox Christmas a couple of weeks later. These aren't just social niceties, they are mission-critical acts of team building. They reinforce the reality that up here, national identity fades away. There are no Americans or Russians or Japanese, there is only crew. They're a family forged in a vacuum, a band of brothers and sisters whose shared survival depends on the simple, powerful idea that they are all in this together. It is the most powerful and important system on the entire station, and it's one that is built not of metal and wire, but of pure human will. That unbreakable bond, that family forged in a vacuum, is not a happy accident. It is the final, most crucial piece of life support on the entire $100 billion station. It's the human system that makes all the technical systems work, and it is the living embodiment of the overview effect that astronauts experience from the cupola. The profound truth they see with their own eyes, that we're all on this fragile blue marble together, is a reality they must live every single minute, or they don't live at all. It is the ultimate lesson of the final frontier, played out in real time by a handful of heroes 250 miles above the Earth. And so, when you step back and look at the entire picture, the story of the International Space Station becomes one of the greatest stories of human ingenuity ever told. Think about what you've just discovered. We have seen how these elite explorers survive in a place where there is no up or down, a world where they must literally pull against the vacuum of space just to keep their bones from turning to chalk, where their bodies wage a civil war on themselves and their minds fight a constant battle against crushing isolation. These heroes live in a machine that breathes for them, turning their own exhaled poison into the very water that will be split to create their next breath. They drink yesterday's coffee, made from their own purified sweat and urine. They master the high-stakes ballet of a sponge bath and learn to operate a multi-million-dollar toilet with the precision of a surgeon. They are protected from cosmic bullets by an ingenious suit of armor and from their own loneliness by a simple phone call home. This isn't just a space station. It is a fragile city in the sky, a testament to what humanity can achieve when we choose cooperation over conflict and ingenuity over despair. It is a $100 billion bet on our own future. The men and women who call this place home are more than just astronauts. They are pioneers, living proof that there are no boundaries we cannot cross and no challenges we cannot overcome. They are the heroes on the very edge of everything, carrying the hopes of all of us on their shoulders. If you are amazed by the staggering courage and ingenuity it takes to live and work on the International Space Station, show your support for these modern-day explorers by typing "Beyond" in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another journey into the most incredible achievements of humankind.